Yes, please share your businesses in. So I think we're going to get started. So thank you so much for all of you being here. We're really thrilled to have you. So thank you for being here to celebrate Business Story Day 2022. Use your story to open doors. I'm thrilled that Benga invited me to join you all here today. So I'm Marianne Lombardi. I'm the founder and the CEO of Marianne Lombardi Coaching. I'm an entrepreneur and executive coach and an author. I help impact entrepreneurs and change makers clarify and simplify so they can take the bold action necessary to solve big problems without all the noise. My firm also works with cities to build policies, programs, and infrastructure to help them attract and retain, and most importantly, empower a diverse entrepreneurial workforce. So this topic of storytelling is very near to my heart. So I believe that our stories are more important now than I think ever. But where do those stories come from is always a question that I'm concerned with, right? Like when we think about the stories that we tell about ourselves, have you ever thought about how much of those stories, of that identity that you hold, is designed by someone else for their benefit, and how much of it is designed by you? So often, especially as women, the stories that we tell about ourselves come from stories and expectations that were handed down to us by others. So I spent the past year unpacking my own story to uncover how many of those narratives of mine were based on societal or cultural or familial expectations. And I put it in a book. It's called It's Your Story to Tell: Essays on Identity from a Messy Life Well Lived, my life being the messy one. So it's out from New Degree Press. So the book is about how identities are formed, and so who has the power to form them, and why it's important to be the designer of your own identity as well as the one who's telling the story of who you are. It's a reinvestigation of my own identity, inspired by my child's willingness to question their own. So writing your own story, telling your own story, knowing your story is powerful, and it allows us to take the reins of our narrative. This is important for both ourselves, who we are, knowing ourselves better, but also powerful for our businesses. It connects us deeper with our why, and it allows us to connect those passions more deeply to drive forward in a more purposeful life and a purposeful business. It also allows us to develop a relationship with our customers and our clients, and to connect them in a more authentic way. So I am thrilled and excited that you are here to join us in this conversation about how to use your story to open doors on this Business Story Day 2022. So let's jump into what the agenda is today. So if we could advance the slide, thank you so much. So here's what's going to happen. We are going to start with opening remarks and jump right into our keynote presentation. So there'll be a couple of those. And then we're going to have a founders panel. We've got 3 wonderful founders who are here to talk about their stories and their businesses and how their stories have had an impact on that business. Then we're also going to jump to a story incubator panel to talk about 2 organizations that are really there to help support entrepreneurs tell their stories and use those stories to help build their businesses. Then we'll have a Q&A and some closing remarks, and we will be out of here, off and going. So this is an
let's set an alarm for 6:30.
All right, guys, I'm going to mute a couple of you if you aren't muted already. So this is an opportunity for you to participate. We've got a good Q&A question session towards the end there. So if you have any questions, please start writing them down so you don't forget them later. And hopefully we can get you guys on camera to ask those questions and get to know some of our founders here, as well as Benga and the rest of the community that's with us today. Wonderful. So I'd love to take a quick second to introduce you to Benga. So Benga Ogunjimi is a business storytelling expert. Benga is a West African name that means elevate, which has led him to his life's purpose of elevating leaders from good to great. In his quest to fulfill that purpose, Benga has coached hundreds of business leaders at organizations like American Express, Verizon, and the UN Foundation. He is the executive producer of Good to Great Stories, a small business documentary, and the author of Borderless Voice, The Power of Telling Your Story and Defining Your Identity. In 2021, Benga's storytelling efforts were recognized by Washington, D.C.'s Mayor Muriel Bowser, who proclaimed February 21st as Business Story Day in Washington, D.C. Benga, it's so thrilled to have you here. Please jump on in. Thank you for doing all you do.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, Marianne. And thank you every single person for joining us tonight. We are thrilled for another year of Business Story Day. What I want to do is to give a whole little bit of background how this journey began. It began last year when I had the opportunity to produce a documentary called Good to Great Stories, a small business documentary. And this documentary was trying to tell the story of 7 businesses in Anacostia, east of the river. And these entrepreneurs took on the authority of not just only shaping their own personal narrative, but shaping the community's narrative. We were able to get the documentary on Amazon Prime streaming platform. And we also got a mayoral recognition proclaiming February 21 as Business Story Day. And this is the 2nd edition of this day that we have begun. I'm so thankful for the leadership of Mayor Bowser for recognizing the contributions of entrepreneurs from diverse backgrounds across the country and around the world bring to the economy of Washington, D.C. I'm also recognizing the capital of our personal stories can bring to the district's local economy. And this Business Story Day, we decided to choose the theme, use your story to open doors. More than ever, as we gradually come out of the pandemic, there's a whole lot of pivoting and redefining going on. And our message and our contribution to entrepreneurs is to remind them that their story is their superpower. And that one of the most important assets, usually on the tap, they have is their business story. And when businesses take on the authority of shaping their story, as we saw happen east of the river, not only do they transform their individual businesses, they also have the opportunity to shape the collective identity of the community. So we are charging everyone to look into their individual origin stories as a tangible business asset. As she said, the name of my business is called Go Global. Go Global is a media company and is a leadership company. We specialize in the power of business storytelling. And we help thought leaders, businesses tell, elevate, and monetize their stories. I personally have the opportunity to work with leaders of very many diverse categories and backgrounds and leadership levels. Go Global is one of the partners for a few of the entrepreneurship programs happening in DC. And one of the things that we realized is that there is a commonality between entrepreneurs of all cultures, of all backgrounds, and that is their individual stories. Oftentimes, we release and relinquish that responsibility to an industry, to a community, to the media, to shape that. Again, my message, our message, is that we should take authority over that. The way you see yourself is your identity. The way I see you is your brand. Again, this program provides you an opportunity to take mastery over that brand identity. And that is our message today. So once again, thank you to the mayor for declaring today as Business Story Day, as well as the participating organizations and entrepreneurs who have come together to make this story possible. So what I want to do shortly is to introduce the representative of the mayor, and that is Christy Whitfield. She is the director of DSLBD, which is the DC Local Local Business Development Agency. I'm going to read a short bio. Afterward, I'm going to introduce her using my own words, right? So DSLBD is a government agency with a mission to support the development, economic growth, retention of district-based businesses, and promote economic development throughout the district commercial corridors. This work allows the agency to connect businesses to real-time local, federal, and global opportunities. DSLBD helps businesses navigate the government contracting and procurement landscape quickly, confidently, and effectively, and also propel every entrepreneur with a great idea and a comprehensive plan towards the capital they need to make it happen. So this is my own personal introduction of Director Christie, and it happened sometimes late last year in a DC program called Aspire to Entrepreneurship. It is a program for returning citizens seeking a path or track in entrepreneurship. And the city turns around and invests into them seed capital for that to happen. So we had a local nonprofit called Marshall Heights Development Corporation. And there was a panel of business people, government people, financial people. And one by one, these entrepreneurs would come and they would pitch their ideas. And it was the turn of a gentleman, I believe he operated a food business. And we know that entrepreneurs are not naturally storytellers. He showed up to the platform, and I think he had a stage fright, and he could not proceed. And he just said, you know what? I'm done with this. I'm sorry, I can't do it. And he walked off the platform. Immediately, Director Christie swung into action. She went after him, as a bunch of other speakers as well went after him. And after a couple of minutes, and this was a live program, there were cameras, there were media, there were people waiting to see what is going to happen. It took a couple of minutes and they were able to get through to him. And reluctantly, the gentleman agreed to continue his presentation. He came to the platform and again, he stopped again, and we were all bracing ourselves for a part 2 meltdown. And in that moment, Christie looked to him and said, look at me. Look at me. The authority that she commanded the room. And he said, I know exactly what you feel and where you are. Christie proceeded to tell the gentleman our own entrepreneur story. She said, I remember my own local business. I believe it was a cake or cupcake business. And I can tell you how many rejection and how many people look in my face and how many people said no to me over and over again. I know what you're feeling. I've been exactly where you're standing. Again, look at me. The difference between we, the entrepreneurs, and the rest of everyone out there is we never give up. We keep showing up. And I want you to show up and tell your story. Ladies and gentlemen, this was storytelling in motion. Literally, you saw the transference of confidence, of authority, of mastery, of thought leadership to this individual. He proceeded, he told the story, he made his presentation, and there was a resounding applause. Washington Post beat me to it. I wanted to write that story, and they did. And I've been waiting for the opportunity to tell that story in my own voice. So Director Christie, that is my own story and your power as a master storyteller. So I'm going to go ahead and play the video that we have received from our office, and that will be the representation of the Mayor of Washington, D.C.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Christy C. Whitfield, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Director of the Department of Small and Local Business Development, also known as DSLBD. Thank you, Benga Ogunjimi of Go Global, for inviting me to speak. And on behalf of Mayor Bowser, congratulations on the inaugural of Business Story Day. An entrepreneur's story is an essential aspect of a business owner. Having owned a business myself, we forget that our stories are interwoven into our companies and play a significant role in our success. It never ceases to amaze me how much time people waste searching for shortcuts to entrepreneurial success without realizing that their narrative can make or break a sale. People want to know our stories. Our stories help inform customers about our businesses, products, and values. And for some customers, our stories are the definitive reason for choosing our products over another. Our stories are the glue that turns a transaction into a connection. It binds our customers to us from the other side of the register. Business Story Day reminds me that in my past entrepreneurial life, my relationships with my customers was deeply rooted in the conversations we had. Those face-to-face conversations were the reason they continued coming back and supporting me and my business. It would behoove me to note that we here at DSLBD are here to provide continued support in the telling of your stories. For example, the Dream Pitch program offers support to businesses located in Wards 7 and 8. Businesses accepted into this competitive program will go through 8 weeks of training to help them grow and become sustainable in the future. In addition, every participant business will receive business development support, including gaining experience with financial projections, marketing and branding, creating your business pitch, and ongoing mentorship opportunities. An excellent opportunity that we are offering is We Aspire program. The Aspire program is a way for returning citizens to be recognized and is a national model for developing and training successful small business owners. The We Aspire program will provide 40 returning citizen entrepreneurs with cohort-based training, including new or aspiring entrepreneurs and established businesses. Both programs are currently accepting applications. And so to learn more about these programs, please visit us at dslbd.dc.gov. Earlier this month, Mayor Bowser and the Office of the Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development launched the Bridge Fund, a $100 million investment in businesses and workers grappling with the COVID-19 public health emergency in hospitality and entertainment and retail sectors. The Bridge Fund is devised to assist small business employers with maintaining operations and employees. So to learn more about this funding opportunity, visit obviousylydc.com. As you can see, Mayor Bowser knows the importance of these stories and is proud to give entrepreneurs a day to take a moment to reflect inward and look at the journey that got them where they are. The blood, sweat, and tears deserve recognition. And so with that, on behalf of the mayor, I am honored to read the proclamation that February 21st will forever be known as Business Story Day. Business Story Day. Whereas, through the efforts of Go Global LLC and its founder, Benga Ogunjimi, February 21, 2022 has been designated as Business Story Day to celebrate and recognize the business origin stories of business leaders and their economic and cultural contributions to the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. And whereas Business Story Day increases the general public's awareness of the roles business leaders and entrepreneurs play in the economic prosperity of DC communities. And whereas local businesses and entrepreneurs continue to help build thriving communities by sharing and implementing their visions for the benefit of the communities they serve. And whereas Washington, D.C. is the home to entrepreneurs from a broad range of diverse cultural backgrounds with a unique perspectives and inspirational stories that have the potential to foster new innovations, strengthen the local economy, and enrich our culture. And whereas Business Story Day is an opportunity to recognize Washington, D.C. as a city that embraces entrepreneurs and their innovative ideas, and as a place where business success stories happen. Now, therefore, I, the Mayor of Washington, D.C., do hereby proclaim February 21, 2022 as Business Story Day in Washington, D.C. Muriel Bowser. Thank you again for having me. And please continue to write and share your story. Not only is your story a viable aspect of your business, it can be an inspiration to the next generation of business owners. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sending a virtual thank you to Dr. Christie for the keynote and helping us to continue this program. Representing the mayor, thank you for the words. So now we transition to the founders panel. We have three dynamic, inspirational, powerful women of business on this panel to talk about their founder story. We have Daniela Senyon. We have Javon Kassif. And we have Janelle Anderson. They represent local businesses in DC. So if you would please come to the camera, please turn on your cameras, unmute yourself, and we're going to get started. So do we have Daniela, Javon, and Janelle?
Hi.
Hello.
Great. Welcome, ladies. So what I want to do, we're going to go in the order of Daniela, Javon, and Janelle. And I want you to think about what is one word that comes to mind when you think about your business, and tell us why. Daniela, over to you.
I would say resilience, for sure. I think like basically every entrepreneur, it's definitely a journey. It's a marathon, not a sprint. It's a lot, basically a roller coaster every day, and you have to show up and not give up. And, as it was said earlier, it's definitely about just getting through those hurdles and, making sure that we show up the next day, trying to do it with a smile, motivate our teams, and, keep moving forward.
Excellent. Javon, what is one word when you think of your business and why?
Well, hello, Banga. I'm very excited to be here. I can think of several words, but one that comes to mind when asked the question is definitely going to be luxury. Luxury is the epitome and the foundation of why Nail Bed and Bar exists. And before we get into it, it's Javon Kassif is the correct pronunciation of my name.
Thank you so much, Javon. I tried, but and I definitely know with someone with an international name myself. So I put a lot of effort into it, but thank you for making my effort count and showing me the right way to do it, Javon. Great luxury. Janelle, what is your one word when you think about your business and why?
Resourceful. We are survivors, but through it all, we're very resourceful. We try to find the best way for our clients to manage, whether it's a design or DCRA or getting through a permitting process. Knowing the city and understanding what's required, we can tap into our bank, our resourcefulness bank. So I would say resourceful. We're very resourceful.
Great. Now that I have you, I still have you, Janine. Everyone has a story to tell. And if that were true, every entrepreneur has a story to tell. I coined this phrase a few years ago. I didn't do anything legally about it. And before I knew it, all memes on social media were saying the same thing. And I can swear, I tell my wife, I originated that phrase. And I was introducing a women entrepreneur. And I said, it is often said, behind every successful man, there is an even stronger woman. And I went on to say, behind every successful woman, there is a powerful story. So I know you all have powerful stories of your business. So Janelle, why don't you take us to the origins?
Oh, wow.
The moment how that business crystallized and became a reality.
Okay. I will start in the late 80s, 1980s. It's not going to be a long story, but I'll start there. I worked for a company called Sultan Campbell Britt Owens. It was a very strong African-American firm in the District of Columbia. And during the Barry administration, they got a lot of jobs. But during the 1990s, a recession hit and we received another mayor, and the mayor had other things on her plate. And so I was laid off and I sent out resumes. I didn't know, nobody was even responding to my resumes. So one day I was in bed with tea and looking at a TV program. And I saw a commercial, and that commercial was for home inspections. So I said, okay, here, this is a great opportunity. So I started a home inspection business with me one, sole proprietor. And that grew. I ended up hiring additional inspectors. So by the time, well, also during that time period, Mr. Britt of Sultan Campbell Britt Owens passed on small architecture projects to me. So by 2006, things were really moving. And I said, oh, I'm getting tired of this home inspection. I applied for to become a certified third-party inspection company and did. So I was able to hire inspectors for that. And in, I guess around 2006, 2008, I appeared on PBS, the This Whole House program. So I was the lead architect on that. So things started to grow. And I would say during all this tribulation, during all this recession, I mean, it was just preservation. I just persevered. I persevered. And that led to character to hope, right? So things grew. That's my story. I always diversified. And so when one side of the company is low, the other's high. So right now we're architects, wet utility designers, and certified third-party inspectors.
Excellent, excellent. Isn't that kind of where the climate we are right now? And a lot of people going through what you went through a few years ago. And that, one of the things I say is a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. Opportunities will always masquerade as challenges. In the midst of a loss of job was the birth of a business. And congratulations once again, Janine.
Thank you.
Javon, I got it this time around. Can you take us to that powerful moment that led to the birth of the business?
Yes. So Nail Bed and Bar opened in 2018 in Southeast. We're east of the Anacostia River. And it's my dream to bring luxury nail care to a neighborhood that was well-deserved, but voided a space that provided nail care in a clean environment. So that is really, Nail Bed and Bar allows me to mesh both my creative side along with my business side, altogether. So that is really where Nail Bed and Bar came from. We aim to be the preferred destination for all nail care needs in DC, Maryland. We have a customer and client base that is very vast and very strong throughout the city. But that is really the start of Nail Bed and Bar. It was really my desire to bridge the two loves that I have for both fashion, art, and all things creative. I live in a very colorful world, if you will.
Javon, can you tell us more about your decision for your business location? Oftentimes, when you think about luxury within the district, you automatically think about other quadrants. We're not going to mention their name. But why was the decision of your current location and particularly the community your business is located?
So one of the most important components of my story, I believe, is the cultural connection I have to DC. I'm one of the only Black owned and operated luxury full service nail salons that's east of the river, and throughout the DMV with an actual brick and mortar space itself. Another thing that drew me to this side of town is that I'm also a resident of Ward 7. I own a home and reside in a home. So I own several properties east of the river. And I found this to be one of the most sought after areas. Now it's a highly sought out area in the city. But I have roots that date back to the early 1940s, if you will, when my great grandparents migrated to the city. So deciding to be in Southeast was really the driving force because this is where my people are. All of my brothers grew up in Southeast. I have all brothers, I have no sisters. But all of my older brothers grew up in Southeast. My family was raised primarily in the Capitol Hill area, but I was definitely drawn to the Southeast area, specifically in the Ward 7 community, because there is nothing for several miles that provide the type of service that we provide, as well as the experience that we guarantee when you come to Nail Bed and Bar.
Excellent, excellent. Daniela, can you take us also to the beginnings and how the business came into fruition? But particularly, Danielle, if you can recall, I was reading your story. I know you started your entrepreneurship journey at a very early age. Can you take us to the beginnings of your entrepreneurship journey and the beginning of your business?
Yeah, absolutely. We'd love to. So, and again, I'll try to make this somewhat short. But I have been an entrepreneur probably since I was in second grade with numerous, that my first recollection was selling like stickers and lunch in school. So I think I had that very strong desire, but realistically, I started my first actual business by the time I was 13. And I started a dessert catering company in my home in Dominican Republic. That's where I'm from and where I grew up. And I basically, by the end of that year, I had 6 employees. I was waking up at 3 a.m, baking before going to school, sometimes getting to leave early when allowed, baking all after school, was catering weddings, events, private parties, a number of things. So my business grew significantly. And, with that money that I was able to save up and through my business, I was able to save enough to go to college in New York to culinary school, which was my dream. And that was a Culinary Institute of America, which I attended when I turned 18. So I moved to the States at that time to go to school. So, I would say fast forward a bit, went to school, graduated, ended up in DC working for companies like the Four Seasons Hotels and Jose Andres Think Food Group. I would say spent a lot of time getting to know the industry, but I always knew that I was an entrepreneur at heart and I wanted to start my own business. And one of the things that was really drawing to me was the fact that from the Latino community, everything that I saw represented tended to be like hole in the walls. It wasn't presented in a beautiful manner. I didn't really think that it represented my culture, my country as a whole, and that was painting a picture that made it lesser of. So I wanted to make sure that, culturally we showcased the food and the place in a beautiful way. Kind of like Javon, like, from focused on luxury, we were, I wanted to create a space that people really wanted to come, that they felt that it was the next cool spot, but simultaneously they weren't only I would say enjoying the space, but elevating the culture, which was again one of my drawing factors. It was changing that narrative that Latin food and Latin cuisine, that what I was seeing in DC at the time was very much again just lesser off, or people were just paying less for it because they didn't feel they had the same status. And it's something that I struggled with for a minute when I moved here, and it was like, this is not really, to me, accurate representation. Unfortunately, we just have lesser opportunities at times when it comes to, building our brick and mortars and so forth. So an important part of my story and my journey was changing that narrative. And so in 2016, opened the first Colada shop. Fast forward, now we have 4 locations and 3 underway. So we have grown significantly. We're located in DC, Maryland, and Virginia. And I forgot to mention this, very important. Colada Shop is a Cuban and Caribbean cafe and bar. And we are like an all-day affair. We love to serve people from not only what we call coffee, cooking, cocktails, and what we call Cubanism, which refers to the hospitality and just that way of living. And we aim to put a smile on everyone's faces every day.
Amazing, amazing. Can you tell us the specific location in those states where the businesses are located?
Sure, absolutely. So we are in 14th Street, so 14th and T, Northwest, at the Wharf in Southwest in DC. We are in the Mosaic District of Fairfax in Virginia, as well as in Potomac, Maryland, in Cabin John Village.
Excellent, excellent.
Yeah.
So right now, let's pivot to the financial aspect of the business. And I want to ask you the role your story played in securing your first business capital. Oftentimes, I know going to a traditional financial institution, the decisions are computer-based. You don't always have the opportunity to use your story oftentimes. You may develop a positive relationship with a loan officer, but that is not often the case. And now with automation, but how were you able to get the first set of business financing for your business? And did your story play any role in opening that door? How about we start again with Janelle? Can you think of the beginning of your business and using your story to unlock capital opportunities?
I would say in the very beginning, I was unemployed. And so my business started off of unemployment, and that is not a way to go. But as I started to grow, I realized that I had to find a bank that would work with me. And I switched banks and was able to work with a banker. We became friends. She took me out to lunch. She would give me a heads up. Actually, she was one of the ones who gave me a heads up to say, Janelle, I'm passing some documents to you. Make sure that you get it in on this time. And it was for the PPP. So I was one of the first ones to get it. And it was because of that relationship. Also, in developing a relationship with organizations like WACF, where I was able to get a line of credit, where in the very beginning, I was not able to get a line of credit with the bank that I was banking. And even with them, I was able to have SBA write off some of that. So it was the relationships that I developed that helped me to grow as a business. What I did not like is during another recession, I was working on a project and I needed to somehow pay for that. And so one bank was able to underwrite the invoices for me. So it does go back to forming relationships and getting to know certain folks in the industry so that opportunities come.
Excellent. Well, business lessons, oh, they're dropping, all these germs are dropping. I hope you're catching them. Form relationship at the very early stages of your business. Javon, your story, did that play any role in getting your startup capital?
Yes, and so Startup Capital for Nail Bed and Bar is a story within itself. All of the funds raised to renovate this amazing, beautiful space came from my hard work, my savings, my retirement. So there are a few fast components to that in itself. Right now, Nail Bed and Bar does not currently qualify for some of the larger grants that one may be aware of or small business may have access to in Washington, D.C., like Main Streets or Great Streets, or even, unfortunately, some of the Wake of support. But with that, we have been fortunate enough to receive great support, access to grants from DSLBD, as well as the Minnesota Avenue Main Streets and Pennsylvania Avenue Main Streets. So definitely very grateful for the relationships that have been formed with Letitia and the team at DSLBD, including Christy Whitfield. But as I stated, a lot of the startup costs was definitely raised from family and friends, very strategic savings, living off of toast and water to furnish and outfit and do renovations and pay contractors and even pay our team. So a lot of that is definitely bootstrap. Unfortunately, when it comes to finances, I don't have a beautiful picture of, being able to walk into a bank and apply for a $100,000 loan, which is almost what is necessary to open a business in this environment today. So definitely we've been able to apply for as many grants and financial resources that do not have the requirement of a payback or interest bearing. Now, some of the other things are because we are a nail salon, it is not commonplace to see a Black as the owner and operator for a nail salon providing nail services. So that has definitely impacted us in somewhat of a negative way because we don't have historically, you don't see, or it's not the norm that you will see a African-American woman as the face of a nail salon brand. When you can almost find a nail salon on many corners throughout any community in any neighborhood. So there has definitely been some challenges, but bootstrapping and being smart with budgeting has definitely been our best bet.
Excellent. Save your money, tap into Love Capital, family and friends, and take advantage of non-traditional financial relationship institution to build your relationship.
Absolutely.
Daniela, can you take us to the accessing of capital for the business at the beginning stages?
Sure. I think at the beginning stages for me, it was, definitely, big part of that roller coaster where, traditional banks, again, weren't necessarily very willing. Restaurant industry is not an industry that's deemed as bankable most of the time because there's a lot of risk. And then again, coming from a woman, a Latino woman, it was, I think, slightly harder. So at the time, I really searched for individuals, and I would say finding private investment, and ended up partnering up with a couple people that really believed in the story, and understood that the change that I wanted to make. And it, they kept telling me afterwards that what sold them was like, if we have one item on our menu, it's going to be the best one you've ever tasted of that one item, and that I was so fixated in the quality of what we were going to put out that it was going to be successful no matter what. I think they really saw that failure was not an option while I was telling my story, and like seeing the drive. And I think it was definitely a contributing factor. Originally, when I was talking to them, they were actually supposed to be my landlords for the location. And then after we had like deep conversations about the concept and what I wanted to achieve, they really saw the bigger picture, and they were, can we be part of this business? Which obviously was very helpful, because I did have savings as well. It's not that I was coming into this, with nothing, but I was also at the time, I would say, very naive as to how much it was actually really going to cost. So I think it was definitely incredibly important for me to, have that additional financial backing, and form that partnership that would allow me to start. I think that narrative and that conversation has changed significantly through the years as people have seen the brand grow. And it's now, when I fundraise for even another concept, I've had to turn away money from private people, like, hey, I don't want to give away that much, I'm just looking for X amount. No, but because they trust, after you build your reputation, that following your story, I've seen that people tend to be a lot more willing to, and freeing with their money. So that has been good to see. But also, I think that you also don't want to give away your business when you're partnering up with people. When you're seeking private investment, it's usually in exchange for equity, right? So and that's something that you really have to consider. Also, working with partners is getting into a marriage, right? It's something that you have to be prepared for. So I would recommend making sure that you have a number of options, but trying to make sure that you always retain control of your business. Form deep partnerships with banks, with organizations, which I've been lucky enough to work with the Latino Economic Development, for example, that they've have assisted me in the past when opening locations as well. And they're a lot more flexible, smaller organizations than the larger banks, because again, every time you're going to private money, it's in exchange for a long-term ownership. And when you believe in yourself, like I do, and believe in my story and what I'm going to put out, you want to make sure that you kind of have a bridge to get you there, but not necessarily that you're tied to giving away your business to someone else in exchange for that immediate capital.
So look outside of the box. Funding can come from unexpected places, and it can be your landlord.
You can.
Yeah. Lord. Danielle, since I still have you, or Daniela, what was it about your commitment to quality and excellence and luxury? Did that come from your personal value, just being an excellent person? Or is it like mentors or coaches? Like, because you mentioned that even if you had one product, quality has to be on point. Where did that mindset come from?
I honestly think that mindset came from, my culture, my education, just really my work experience. And seeing how ultimately, quality is what drives business for longevity, right? And I think that was a key component. I think you can create a very beautiful space, and people will come once, but what will make them come again is a memorable experience, memorable, in my case, food, memorable hospitality, and memorable usually side with high quality. So I think it's, and again, I don't only tie it to the product itself. I think it's In any type of business, I think it's tied more to how something or someone or an environment makes you feel. And, so I think quality to me is attached very much to that. And I think that was why it was so important for me to convey that through the entirety of the business.
Excellent. So I want to pivot to you taking control of your business story and perception, which I believe you've already started. So back to you, Janelle. Can you think about a time where you really have to take control of the way a potential contractor, partner, investor, client saw your business, and you had to say, wait a minute, let me tell you the real story? Do you have any one of those moments, Janelle?
Oh, several. I actually just maybe a couple of weeks ago, my associate principal and I were in a meeting, and a potential client, questioned us, our ability to do certain things. And so I just simply said, hey, we've got a 5-year, $7 million contract with one government agency. We're about to do construction administration of 300 in fees. And these are the things we're doing. So if you want us to work with you, we're more than welcome to do it. So it's a matter of, I guess, explaining to people that we're just not somebody who came out here last week and put a shingle up, but we're here to stay. And I like what Daniela said, that you do have to do something really well. And we do architecture really well, and we do multifamily housing really well over a period of years. And we have clients that we have worked with for 20 years. They'll call us to work on certain projects. So I think as a Black woman in this industry, explaining what we have done and maintaining excellence is really important. And I guess I have been the face of Amar for many years. And when I bring other people on, what we do now is we have a presentation, and we explain the core values of our company. And those core values, hopefully the new hire will retain those core values and express it to the client so that they can become mini Janelles. So I'm talking too much, but anyway, we do that.
Excellent. Oftentimes, as we established already, that whether the decision is whether you want to participate or not. There's an existing perception of your business, particularly if you come from certain community, you come from certain background. There's a projection, there's a perception people already have. And part of storytelling is your authority to take control of that narrative. Mm-hmm. And I so like how you interrupted, that perception and say, hey, let me tell you who we are. But oftentimes we don't do that. We just assume that a person will reach a decision and we say, I have the best intention. I have the qualification, but it always transition out, expresses itself out. So, Devon, I know there was a story written about your business in one of the local newspapers, how you had to pivot during the pandemic. Can you tell us how you were able to pivot during the pandemic, Devon?
Yes. So during the pandemic, of course, like most salons and other service-based industries, we were shut down for several months. So we basically had the opportunity or the idea to create what is called Color Class. And that is a virtual learning environment for colorful girls. And through Color Class, we prepared an entire kit that included everything from nail polishes to nail files to items that are necessary for nail designs. And we taught in a virtual setting So our reach was very wide. We had attendees from Florida to California, Texas, and we taught young girls how to do their nails. And we also taught them about the importance of self-care and other life skills, if you will. So color class was birthed out of being shut down and primarily shifting services in our focus to a virtual setting.
Right. And Daniela, how have your business, your understanding of business grown over the years from your first location, or even when you had the business idea, and to where your business is right now? What business lesson have you come to appreciate the most and you see responsible for the growth of the business?
Well, I feel like I could do a whole hour on this, but there's definitely been significant growth in the business, but also I feel like significant growth in my understanding of the business through the last 6 years. It's I think even though I had a lot of experience, I feel within the industry. Starting a business from scratch is very different than working in one that's already been established. Like that one comes to operations, the other aspect comes to actually, running something from A to Z. And as we know, as entrepreneurs, we're kind of have to do, especially at the beginning, absolutely everything. It's we have to, in my case, it wasn't only about the food. It was learning to be a architect, a plumber, whatever it took. A graphic designer, a marketing specialist, all these other segments of the business that made it stay alive, basically. But I would say one of the main things that has helped me, I would say, gain a much larger understanding of my business was I was fortunate to be part of a couple development programs that I got into that, allowed me to understand financially my business a little better and really get out of the business for a little bit. And by that, I mean, I was involved in the James Beard Well Entrepreneurship Program, as well as the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses. And both of those programs ultimately allowed me to study my business. When you're an entrepreneur, you are in it all the time. And you sometimes, unfortunately, get used to some things, kind of put blinders on, or don't take the time because you feel like no one else can do what you're doing. And you're so immersed in it that you're not really on it. You're just, going day by day, putting out fires constantly and not really understanding your growth potential. And both of those classes allowed me to, leave the business for a couple weeks at a time and really see things from afar, if that makes sense, study it and really think of the long-term trajectory where I was, where I wanted to go, understand the mission, the vision, and the growth potential of the business. And I think that really came into play, I would say a year or two later when the pandemic hit, and you we had to pivot like everyone else. And, as you mentioned, Benga, earlier, it's like within times of crisis, sometimes there's also a lot of opportunity, and having a business plan in place for my growth allowed me to see that opportunity and put it in play. And so we doubled in size within the pandemic, which, for restaurants specifically, everyone, as an industry, a lot, we were all struggling. But again, having kind of that game plan and allowing me to take some time off and really be on the business and have that growth strategy, I was able to see those opportunities at that time and really act upon them.
Excellent. So I have this thought: don't just walk in your business, walk on your business, know your numbers, tap into communities of thought partners, and business planning is not dead. People tell you it's a waste of time. Daniela is telling you business planning is not dead. It's still a living document and it does.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
gradually, I'm going to open this up for Q&A. I'm going to take a few questions at this point, and then we'll have another session. We'll have more Q&A. But I'm going to continue on that same question to Javon, is what is one business lesson that you've come to appreciate more that from when you started and when you are now?
So I share the same sentiment, very similar sentiment that Daniela mentioned. Having the opportunity to work on the business versus in the business. Even one of my other entrepreneur friends mentioned it, that, you know, I missed out on so many opportunities because my head is down. My head is down. I am serving guests and clients every day. I am putting out fires. I am consoling team members. I am trying to hire team members. So all of these things sometimes, or they're distractions, and they sometimes prevent me from having an opportunity to work on formulating better processes. So one of the things that I have learned overall is that just because I am a leader, I need to maintain a leadership role and status at all times, so that there will always be clear boundaries and a clear distinction between who is managing and who is running the race, and who is there to support the race. So I hope that answers your question.
Excellent. Set boundaries. Again, don't be buried in the business. Raise your head up and high and start walking on
I have my hand up.
Hold on 1 second. If we can please also continue to mute. I'm going to open questions very soon. If you want to ask questions, please go ahead like Dowdy did. You can put your hands up. You can use the feature of that. I think it automatically queues you up. And then we're going to ask the question. You also have the option to chat in your question, and I'm also going to read your questions. But before we take your question, Dowdy, let's go to Janelle. What is one lesson that you've learned or you've come to appreciate more from the beginning of your business and where your business is right now?
Wow. There's several of them. One is to stay in line with the mission statement at all times. And another is to make sure that I bring the right people on the bus. In other words, have the right CPA, have the right manager, have the right associate principal, because those people will keep me sane, and those people will be able to run the business if I'm away for a month. And to make sure that they understand what our core values are, so that when they meet a client, they are talking the same talk that I'm talking. And to always maintain the character and the hope that's in our business.
So one of the ways I say, Janelle, is I think every entrepreneur and business owner should try to do this exercise called finding the points of commonality. And this is when you share your leadership or entrepreneur story, and you will have your team members go around and also tell their story, and hopefully you would find some points of intersection. At that point, they come to own the mission of the business. So when they go out to tell the business story, it's coming from a place of purpose and a place of ownership. And I think that is what you spoke eloquently about.
Yes.
That be a mission-driven business, always articulate your core values. And lastly, as your people know the power of your people, one of the things I say from my mentor is, you are not as powerful as your dream, you are as powerful as your dream team. So know your people. Excellent. So how about we take the first question from Dowdy? If you please unmute yourself.
Yeah, hi. Wonderful conference
Also, congratulations again. My name is Dudu Tekle Sopi. I have a passion of doing the art because I went to media communication school, but really struggling to how to get help with my art project. I tried to contact a couple of businesses that were saying that the sport art, but I still do not have nothing else. I have a lot of events, I do a lot of video pictures, but I don't know how to really put it out there and get some money. The job I'm doing, like I'm just coming back from Africa for the African Cup of Nations. I have all those images, all those video, all those pictures, but I don't really know where to start, how to get some help,
Okay.
where to put my art and get some money.
Okay. Thank you so much for the question, and apologize for calling you a
Thank
totally
you.
different name. There's a Nigerian name that sounds very close to your name. It goes by Dawodu. So,
You call it right.
okay. So interestingly, we have the next panel is going to feature organization investing in businesses at your stage of development. And they'll be talking more about specific opportunities they have and programs and funding opportunities and what we can do to participate in those programs. So just stay tuned. Another panel is coming up that is geared towards your specific question. So you are still in the right place. So let me go to the chat. We do have a comment from, is it Mandolin? Awesome guidance. Thank you, Janelle Anderson. We are literally at the same stage seeking to ground in this ways at the Moore Group. So I do appreciate your insights. Excellent. So I'm going to move to the next question in instead of time. Once again, feel free to, we have hands raised. Hold on 1 second. Can we go to Franz Bishop?
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay, my apologies for not sharing my screen. I usually don't show after 6 p.m. after being on Zoom all day. But I've really enjoyed this panel. This just kind of slid into my inbox and I'm so glad I joined on. I too am a CEO here in the Washington area, and it's been so inspiring to hear from 3 female CEOs doing their thing. I'm happy to say that, Daniela, I have been to all but one of your colladas, and I'm a frequent client. I love
Thank
the
you.
opened in the mosaic. Absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. So keep up the good work. Keep grinding. I have not yet, Javon, visited your nail bed, but I certainly hope to. And Janelle, I'm hoping to circle back up to you as a strategic partner, which is my question. So again, I'm the CEO of Aerobodies Inc. We design health and well-being experiences that help companies thrive. And we do that in 3 ways: people, processes, and places. And I've been very encouraged by a lot of the things that you said. I've been in the business for about 24 years as a CEO. So everything that everyone has said has really resonated with me. But I'm curious from your perspectives of each of you, how you are using strategic partnerships to grow your business, especially during COVID, because as we all know, the more people know about you and the more people who have high visibility that know about you, the faster you can grow. So particularly, I'd love to hear, Janelle, your perspective on that. It sounds like you're a little bit in the GovCon space, as I am as well. And then Daniela, how you're doing that with strategic partnerships, whether they're, in like kind or other types of businesses. Thank you.
Oh, that's a great question. I'll tell you one great experience that I have is with CNHED. And someone from that organization contacted me and said, Children's Hospital is looking for an architect. And I said, well, we're really not medical architects. I mean, I don't like to put out a proposal if I know that it's not something that I am qualified to do. And so the person said, oh, okay, I'll get back to you. So CNHED got back to me and said, try for offices. They have lots of offices everywhere. So we put together a great team. We put together a great proposal, and we actually got a contract. So so what I try to do, and I will tell you, this is the part I didn't say. I am not a networking person. It took me a lot to gather my strength just to do this. And when my kids were small, I would really prefer to go to their events opposed to going to, you know, a networking session, which is a big deal. So the organizations that have helped me, and I guess they saw my introvertedness, it's like WAKEF and CNHED and some of these other places, they have really helped me and put me in places. So when I talk about quality is important, whatever we do, we try to put forth the best that we can do, excellence. And from there, we get a lot of return clients. So that's just one example of partnering with people, and hopefully, you know, Children's will become a return client. But anyway, that's one example.
Well, I guess I'll take it on. You know, I think partnerships for us have been an incredible and key part of our business. So I will share like two stories. So one of the things that we like to partner is with a number of small businesses, women-owned businesses in particular, as it's something that's very much part of my mission, and featuring them within our store. So we have, you know, local chocolatier, local jewelry maker, soap maker, for example. So like a number of businesses that we feature on a rotating basis throughout our store. And not only do we get a chance to feature their products, but ultimately, and you know, give them exposure and in our stores, but ultimately we are also gaining market share simultaneously. So I think we build each other up because they also have a following. It also allows our business to kind of retain and keep building a community, which is very important. So those are what's called smaller individual partnerships that are very crucial and integral to our business. And, you know, as you mentioned, Mosaic was a huge partnership for us. So and that store we actually opened in conjunction with a national retailer, Bloomingdale's. So we are in partnership with them to that store. So we're part of their store, which is called Bloomies, which, you know, and that was, as Janelle mentioned, part of a relationship, again, with a different landlord, but with a landlord. You know, when Bloomies was opening, they were like, we want to open a cafe, but we want someone local who's a great operator. And having that great relationship with our landlords and making sure, you know, and I push back, and I want to say this, it's not about giving in to your landlords or anything of that nature. It's about having great relationships. They recognize when you're smart. They know when, you know, you're pushing back, and they respect that. But having those great relationships allowed me for that introduction, which honestly, when that came to my plate, I couldn't believe it. You know, it was like Bloomingdale's, like, you know, like I honestly couldn't even believe it. And, you know, they were like, you know, we're just making that introduction, that rest is up to you. And that was another scenario, I would say, Benga, that the story sold itself. And, you know, and after seeing that, we made that happen, and hopefully we will continue to grow with that partnership and in the future. But I think it's kind of having an impact everywhere you step, and not every conversation kind of comes back around, every panel, every opportunity. And I do believe that. And sometimes, you know, I have people around me and say, hey, you have to start saying no to some of these things, because, you know, you have to keep some time to yourself. And I agree to that, but I'm also like, you know, I do believe that making time for those connections and meeting people is very important and has had a key role in the trajectory of the business.
Thank you so much. That's exactly what I wanted to, you know, I just wanted to hear kind of your, you know, your approach to the strategic partnerships. I definitely would love to carry the conversation offline if you all are willing to share your contact information. I've actually already reached out to you, if you didn't know, on LinkedIn, all three of you. I don't think,
Oh,
I don't,
awesome.
the nail bed is on LinkedIn. So I reached out to you on IG because I'm a big strategic connector. So thank you all very much. This was fantastic.
Thank you.
So just to echo one of the insight from your responses is how to go after big strategic partnership. You know it's a right strategic partnership, especially when it's scary. And that is the right time to kind of lean into your own network and you will see strength in unusual places. So thank you for sharing that. I have one last question for everyone before we turn to the next panel. So I'm going to start with Javon. When you hear the word female entrepreneur, what comes to mind?
Strength, everything about being strong and persevering. That's what comes to mind. Everything that I am, everything that I've been raised to be, my identity, power, limitless, fearless, all of those things come to mind when I hear female entrepreneur.
Excellent. Janelle, what comes to mind?
What immediately comes to mind is rest. And when I say rest, what that means is that female entrepreneurs are just not female entrepreneurs, but we're moms, we're counselors, we're just everything to everybody. And we need to understand when and how to rest so that we can be the best for ourselves as well as for others. That just came to me when you said female entrepreneurs. Sometimes I think we work ourselves much too hard, and we need to trust other people and delegate so that we can rest and center ourselves.
Love it. Daniela?
I'm I don't know where to take this question, but honestly, that when you said that, in my mind, I just kind of put an X to the female part and just focus on the entrepreneur, just because I guess I ultimately would like to seek equality and gender equality in entrepreneurship and access to funding and just access to opportunities for that matter. So I think, but as entrepreneurs themselves, I do feel like women and females have, as both Javon and Janelle were saying, I would say we have to take it really to the next level. We have a number of other responsibilities where we take our community with us in our journey as well, which is very crucial and important. We care about our people. So it's I would say a different weight on our shoulders, and I couldn't agree with Janelle more about the resting part, because we cannot give from empty, and we, I think, tend to get a little too close to empty at times. And it's important to set boundaries and to be able to be the best leaders that we can be.
So I was about to say, ladies, thank you very much, but I'm a very fast learner, Danielle. I'm going to say entrepreneurs, thank you, and founders, thank you very much. Can we all give the virtual clap to these powerful founders and entrepreneurs? Thank you so much for your time. Please go to their websites and their social media pages and follow them and be in contact with them. Thank you for this rich conversation. We wish you all the best. Continue to tell your stories and be an inspiration to the next generation. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm going to turn this over to Mary Ann to take us further.
Thank you, Benga. So we're going to have our next panel. Want to change that slide for us, Benga? That would be wonderful. Great. So here we are. We are going to talk about a story incubator panel, transforming ideas into success stories. So we are here with Rasul and William to help us understand how we can help entrepreneurs do just that. So welcome, gentlemen. Do we have you here? Rasul, are you there?
Good evening. Good evening. Glad to
Oh,
be here this
yes.
evening.
How are you? Yeah, how are you, sir? How are you
I'm
doing?
doing very well, Marianne. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing quite well. William, are you here as well?
Yes. Good evening. How are you?
Oh, good. I am doing quite well. So I am so happy to have you both here. I would love to start out this by just learning a little bit about who you are and the businesses that you work with. So Rasul, do you mind starting us off and letting us understand a little bit about yourself and your work?
Yeah, sure. My name is Rasul Shayer. I'm actually the Education and Business Advisory Manager at Washington Area Community Investment Fund, which is WACIF in its acronym. And I've been here since 2020, matter of fact, right before the pandemic hit. And so a lot of learning, a lot of pivoting along with the other businesses that we work along with. And prior to that, I was actually an entrepreneur for about just over 12 years. I had my own marketing strategy consultancy. So all these stories of all these beautiful entrepreneurs that were just shared, I feel it and love it intimately on so many levels and just absolutely loved hearing it. So this is a little bit about what I do at WACIF and some of my, just a little bit of my prior history before coming here as well.
Yeah, can you tell us what WACIF actually is?
Yeah, sure. WACIF is a community development finance institution. And essentially, we work with underserved communities in terms of helping those businesses and the entrepreneurs and the CEOs that are spearheading those businesses. How do we actually help them to prosper? Really the short of it. And that comes in a lot of different flavors and a lot of different sort of ways that we do that. But ultimately our goal is to how do we actually help these entrepreneurs, business owners prosper in their day ins and their day outs in terms of growing and developing their businesses and their enterprises.
Oh, that's super helpful. Thank you. William, help us understand who you are and what you do.
Hey, thanks for having me tonight. This has been really, really cool listening to everyone's story and everyone's path in their business development life. And that's exactly what I do. My name is William Eric Lindsay. Happy to be here. I own my own business coaching company. It's called 1917 LLC. It's based in DC. I've been doing this for about 10 years now as a business coach and small business consultant. I am here representing the Washington, DC Small Business Development Center, which is known as the DC SBDC. We're housed at Howard University. I'm one of their small business advisors on contract there. So I'm here representing Mr. Carl Brown. He's the director of the SBDC, and Mr. Charles Mott. He's the associate director of the DC SBDC. At the SBDC, what we do is we work with businesses or business owners who reside in DC, also residents of the district who would like to start a business. So we work with people who are in business and people who are in the ideation phase or pre-venture phase of their business. And we do not charge for services because obviously your federal taxpayer monies are paying for that services. So it's kind of like, you don't have to call anyone to come and fix your pothole. We're there to fix it for you. So as an analogy to the business world. So if you have any business questions, if you need business advice, business advisory services, those are things that we offer. If you're expanding your business from Maryland, Virginia, or any other state into DC, we definitely work with those companies. If you're expanding your business outside of DC and you live and work in DC and your business is in DC, we definitely work with those businesses as well. We work everything. Think of the business plan and think of every element of the business plan. We pretty much touch across all elements of the business plan. We meet business owners where they are. So if you're a business owner who you need advisory services on your marketing plan, well, that's something that we can assist you with as a small business development center. We form part of the nationwide Small Business Development Center. For example, every state, commonwealth, and territory has at least one lead office. As I said, Howard University is where our lead office is. And we do have other centers in the Washington, D.C. area. We have in the Anacostia, the AEDC, the Anacostia Economic Development Center, which is in Ward 7, Ward 8. And I think I can mention this, but I think we also signed officially the Greater Washington Hispanic Chamber of Commerce as another host center. And this was done not a few weeks ago, actually. So we're definitely expanding our network. We're definitely expanding our services that we provide to business owners and residents in the DC area. So, I think I put the website in the chat room. So, if you need services, that's what we offer. So just sign up for services and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you, William. It sounds like both of you play a coaching role when it comes to the entrepreneurs or business owners or ideators that are coming into the room, right? And I'm wondering, Rasul, if you could talk a little bit about what role that coaching and relationship building plays in the work that you do. I know that Janelle mentioned WAKIF a lot, during the conversation. And so it sounds like it's really important, the relationships that you make. So I'm curious if you could expand on how that works.
Sure. As we've all heard this evening, there's all kinds of different spaces and moments in time when entrepreneurs and business owners need support for that growth and development. And so the two areas that WAKIF works in is really providing that financial capital and then also advisory services. So depending on where the business is and what services are looking for, what support, we kind of step in to provide those resources because, as I mentioned earlier, make it very simple, WAKIF's job is to ensure to the best of our ability that we're working with these entrepreneurs and these business owners to make sure their businesses are prosperous. If they're bringing on a contract and they don't have the financing, we provide a vessel for them to be able to tap into that financial support. If they're looking to grow, but they're not quite sure, what does that look like? Who should be some strategic partners I'm thinking about? Are there some strategic partner in the ecosystem that I'm not aware about that WAKIF can make introductions to? We kind of step in and help to facilitate sort of one of the analogies I like to use, we're kind of the WD-40, for the area in terms of how do we make things smoother and easier and just allow those things to really be operating efficiently and effectively. So we kind of step into those spaces and we have so many different programs. We have our Minnesota Avenue Main Street programs. We just opened up actually last year during the pandemic, Enterprising Women of Color Center that's been spearheaded or funded by the NBDA in its initial phase. We're actually revamped our Capital Extend Accelerator program, which the EWOC launched the first one after the pandemic. We're actually getting ready to launch our Ascend Thrive here in the next few weeks. So there's a number of different programs where we meet entrepreneurs. A bulk of our customers are sort of businesses that have been a little bit beyond the sort of startup or early phase. We do provide support for them, obviously, because the ecosystem consists of those entrepreneurs. But a lot of our focus really is on those businesses that are 3, 4, and 5 years in terms of their business life cycle and how do they think about growth opportunities? What do they need to do in terms of taking it to that next step? What do CEOs and the leaders of these companies, how do they think about in terms of their strategic growth? What direction they need to go to? Once again, this whole idea is about storytelling. How is that storytelling changing from I'm a solo entrepreneur to maybe a 3 or 4 person business, right? So that story of the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years of business sort of exists in one way, but how's that narrative, how's that trajectory changing? And what's the insights, the understanding, the resource and education that you need to sort of pivot from that solopreneur sort of space into a growth-oriented business where you might be hiring more folks, diversifying your market space, increasing market share, as Danielle had mentioned earlier in terms of her business, expanding into different locations. So that's a number of different ways we think about how we step into the ecosystem, provide services and support for business owners and CEOs and entrepreneurs all throughout the region.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I wonder where, William, your services and the work that WAKIF does sort of intersect or overlap, like when we're thinking about the pipeline for entrepreneurs from ideation all the way to growth and scale and all of that, sort of how do your services interconnect with each other, support each other, work together, and overlap?
That's an interesting question, and I'm glad you mentioned that. We do a lot as to the SPDC, to the DC SPDC system. We have a number of partnerships. We partner with WAKIF, that's sometimes based on their needs. We partner with a lot of the DC government agencies like DCRA and DSLBD. We do some of the coaching and small business consulting for those agencies on a week-to-week basis. So a lot of clients who come through DCRA for business licensing, they also need assistance in many of the different business growth areas. And we offer services to DCRA to say, well, let's say, I think it's like Monday or Tuesdays, we have like about an 8-hour window, and then clients can sign up through DCRA, and we work with some of the business owners through that system as well. So we have many partnerships with many of the DC organizations. DC Pro Bono is a big one, where a lot of our clients that need legal advice, we don't necessarily have lawyers on board. However, DC Pro Bono is a partnership that we have, and we definitely guide a lot of our clients to sign up for DC Pro Bono services, and they take great care of our clients. A lot of the funding organizations, when business owners are seeking funding, we send them to organizations that could provide funding. So yeah, working with WAKIF, we do have a lot of overlap, but at the same time, helping business owners is the goal across the board. So the overlap is a good thing. So these business owners have a lot of resources that are attractive to them, so they can actually get many perspectives on one question. And whenever we have a business owner sign up, the start of the question is, how do I? That's always the beginning of the question. How do I? And it's always whatever that subject is. And many times we definitely can manage that. We can definitely help them, guide them through that. How do I blank of the question? And that's the beauty of the services that we provide, from funding to marketing to growth expansion to social media marketing. We definitely answer those type of questions.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I'm curious, when it comes to storytelling, how storytelling plays in into the work that you do. We've talked a lot about how storytelling feeds into the entrepreneurs themselves, but you two, as representing, different organizations, where does storytelling play in the work that you do?
I can jump in on that.
Sure.
A number of different ways, but particularly for the work that I'm involved in, one of my main initiatives is really sort of growing, expanding our Capital Accelerator Extend program, which is basically a cohort of businesses which are growth stage. Mm-hmm. And so part of that consideration, obviously, when it's an award-winning program, pretty competitive. And so when you have anywhere from 50 to 100 businesses apply, but there's only like 9 to 12 slots, there's only a finite amount of space. Obviously, we'd love to help all of them, but we can't. So part of that process is, in addition to meeting the minimum requirements, what stories are these entrepreneurs selling during the application process that really says, we're here to stay, we are hungry, we are successful, we're resilient, we're resourceful, and we flat out want to get the job done, have been getting the job done. We just now need to take it to that next level. So really understanding, going through the process of listening to entrepreneurs tell their stories, and that becomes a part of our consideration, sort of our criteria. Which story entrepreneurs are really bringing that story and shining through and saying, what, we really want to take it to the next stage. How do we do that in terms of being able to do that for ourselves? And so we want to apply to your program to do that. So that's just one way, in listening to the stories. And part of when they get into the program, part of, obviously, if you're trying to take it to the next level, what are the strengths and weaknesses of particular businesses? And if they really have a good story, we say, what, your story is absolutely phenomenal. Now, how are we going to recalibrate that story to what the business growth looks like over the next 2 to 3 years? And if the business had a story which was good, but we're saying, what, you had a great story, but this is where some missed opportunities to really sort of capture the space where you're trying to go. And we help them fill in those stories in that regard. So just in terms of story, that's just one aspect with our Capital Accelerator program. We're really focused on the idea of storytelling, what that means in terms of, to the organization. And like any individual or institution or enterprise, you want to be surrounded by folks who are successful. So successful stories, we're able to contribute. It helps really then tell the story about WAKIF. We're in the space of being able to help businesses succeed. And how do we tell the marketplace? How do we tell our partners? How do we tell them the ecosystem that we're successful? By sharing the stories of the businesses themselves, right? We can do some good work, but we're not going to tell you how great we're doing. We're going to show you. We're going to show you about all these businesses that are successful by sharing their stories. So in that way, Marianne, is kind of the way we really kind of focus on stories and what it means a lot to WAKIF, and also just, once again, being able to spotlight the great work of the entrepreneurs that we're serving.
Oh, yeah, that's so helpful. Thank you. William, how about you guys? Where does storytelling play into the role that you do?
That's a great question. And I would share the story with this story. Every story has a really great framework. And as we go back to our childhood, every great story always has the theme of once upon a time. And normally those framework stories have a happy ending. And there's a journey in between. So from the business perspective, think of your story as a sort of like your business plan development. No matter where you are in your business, think of it as, once upon a time, I had an idea. And that idea turns into this business. So that's the framework for your story. Now, the way we would enter also the story is, well, how do you want this story to end? What does your ending look like? And this is something that we know, from my experience, we've seen a lot of business owners don't look at the ending, writing the last chapter first. So sometimes writing your story is about writing your last chapter first. If you're building your business as part of a story process, how do you want it to end? What's your revenue going to look like? What are your employees? What do you want to continue working 8 hours a day in your business, 12 hours a day in your business? Do you want to expand your business? Do you want to franchise your business? Do you want to license your business? That's the story. So we start from there. It's like, what are your goals? All right. From the business perspective, that's the basic question. What are your goals? But at the same time, it always starts off with, what's the compelling nature of the story that you're going to provide in terms of once upon a time? Once upon a time, I had this idea that, I was going to be an architect, as Janelle mentioned. Well, now, how is that story going to end? Once upon a time, I wanted to, paint nails. Well, how is that story going to end? Now, let's develop a business process from where you are. Let's develop that business process towards the end by creating structures in your business so that your end we can facilitate that end for you, because a business is not a job. A business, if you're creating your business as a job, then it's just a day-to-day thing. But if you're creating a business because you want this entity to survive and sort of thrive on its own by hiring a general manager at some point, where you can actually focus on your other goals, which might be to expand your business, or go into something totally different. Now you're building a different type of business. As Rasul said, it's getting to another level. So now, what is that level? So when we look at stories, we're looking at, okay, great. What is that format for the story? What is your framework to support your story? And how do you want your story to end? I think those are some of the elements that we look at as well, in terms of creating that business plan, that structure, and that ultimate goal for the business owner and their family.
Yeah, what's so interesting is making me think about is those folks who maybe come in, especially if they're at the ideation stage with either of you, both your organizations, who are struggling to tell their story. Sort of what kind of support can you give them to help them tease that out, right? And maybe that isn't possible in the Ascend program due to the competitive nature of it, but are there opportunities to help them really understand how to tease out the pieces of their story that are missing? Maybe you can see that there's a kernel there, but I need more from the story, right? How often do you really work with people to help tease that out?
Yeah, I can. Oh, go ahead.
No, you got it, William. I'm going first. You got it, my friend.
All right.
Come on, William.
No, that's a really good question, because now we're talking about how do we provide our service? What's our service delivery? So it's really a coaching and consulting model, and it all depends on the client. We've worked with clients who just need us for one meeting, and that one meeting can last an hour or 2 hours or 30 minutes. And it's all about the framework for how do we address the client's needs. Some of our clients, we work on a week-to-week basis. The old ICF, not the old, but the ICF structure of coaching. Marianne, you're a coach as well, so you're familiar with that ICF coaching structure, and a small business consultative structure where you meet the client where they are. We ask a number of questions. And their questions are coaching questions where they're reflective on the person. We try not to give an answer, to be honest. It's not, that's pretty easy. I mean, sometimes you have to give an answer. We're like, what's the tax rate in DC? Well, there's an answer for that. You can't coach around that. It's just straight up answer. But your question really is more of our service delivery. So it all depends on the client's needs. Now, what I like about the SBDC is, and this is what I tell new clients coming on board when we do our first introduction meeting, is we work for you. So you fire us when you're ready, right? As long as you need us, we are here. because that's just the service that we are. And that's just the truth. I mean, until you get your answer, we will continue working with you, put it that way. And it's just that, and again, I go back to the framework. It's being a really good coach or a good consultant, being there for the business owner to fulfill their need. Now, we also talked about leveraging networks through the SBDC network. If we don't know, if one of our consultants don't have an answer, guess what? We can actually reach out throughout our entire network and say, hey, this person has a particular question on sales, on market research, on market expansion, on industry research. Guess what? We have connections and we have formal partnerships with the DC Public Library. Now, nationwide, we can take that question nationally, because throughout the SBDC network nationwide, we can call one of our mentors or one of our coworkers in another state and say, hey, have you worked with this kind of business? We heard that you work with this business. Do you have a resource for the business here in DC? That's the beauty of giving them that particular service when a lot of our clients have questions like that for resources. And that's how we deliver our services in a nutshell.
Thank you.
Sure.
Russell, what do you think?
I love what William said when he mentioned, how do we show up in the best way possible for these entrepreneurs? And so one of my own experience in around storytelling is the idea that storytelling is collaborative, right? There's no one side to a story. So part of when clients call us, they might not know what their story is. They're trying to figure out what it is. Mm-hmm. So one of the things is, of course, there's storytelling, there's the telling part, but there's also story listening. So as William just said, like, as they're talking, my job is to listen, ask questions and listen to find out what is it that their story that they're trying to get out, and where is that one or two or three things that I can share, be like, okay, from what I heard, let me, Johnny, let me make sure that I heard you correct. This is what you said? Run down a little list of things in terms of what they just communicated, and then say, is that what I heard you say correctly? If they say yes, I'm like, okay, well, this is what it seems like you're trying to go, what you're trying to do. So part of the way that we really show up and be able to find out is if they don't have a story, maybe they're coming to us because they're trying to figure out what that story is. So part of it for me in a lot of ways is, lots of times as business coaches, and both I mentioned you and William will know that we're counselors sometimes. We're just listening to folks who are just, that they're having trouble. It's been a bad week, a bad day, maybe a bad last couple of hours. And we're literally like trying to put a Band-Aid on just some stuff, just for the moment. It might not, solve the entirety, but at that moment, could we just slow the bleeding just a little bit so they allow them to breathe so they can at least make it through the day? So a big part in terms of, like I really, really appreciate what William said, like listening and being there to find out what's going on and being a sort of that moment of sort of, oh my God, thank you for just listening to me, because it's just been a lot going on this whole week. And with a lot of things were going on, and just being able to give them a few moments or a few sort of tools to help them organize a couple of thoughts really becomes useful. So that's kind of the way I think in terms of LEAF, one of the many ways we show up is just by listening to what they're saying and then helping them, how can I work with them in a collaborative way so that we can co-create the story for them to help them move forward, in which we're able to supply them with some information, some potential resources. And in that support or that collaborative opportunity then allows them to then take the next step, maybe some good information for tomorrow, next week, or the month afterwards, in terms of trying to get them to their next space where they're trying to go.
Yeah, that's really, I'm sorry, Marianne, can I add one more thing?
Oh, please do.
No, when Razul was mentioning that, it reminded, and Razul mentioned this about during the pandemic, we talked to many business owners who really needed to understand one thing: how do I pivot? Now, that word has been overused and we've heard it like 10 times a day, but the real question wasn't about pivoting. I worked with many clients, and I'm sure Wakef as well, Razul as well have done this. Was many clients they panicked, naturally panicked. Well, everything is shut down. We have we're supposed to shut down for 2 weeks, and things what am I gonna do? What's gonna happen? It was always the basic question of how do you show up? And the question I've always asked people, and this is the perfect example in my opinion, is what do you sell, right? So for example, Javon's not here, but I'm gonna pick on her. Javon says, hey, I paint nails. Well, I can actually talk to Javon and say, what do you sell? And once you take that question to heart and really understand as a business owner, what am I selling? You're not selling painting nails. You're selling something totally different. Then pivoting and expanding becomes something, it expands your horizons and your options. Because for example, there was one business owner that I worked with, was they were doing food delivery. Well, they were actually doing, what was it? They were like a limo service. Everything shut down, so no one was really going anywhere. So I asked the gentleman, what is it that you sell? And he's like, well, I sell high-end limo services. I said, no. Think about what you do on a database. What is it that you do? You move people, which is a commodity, from point A to point B. What else could you move? And right there, his business survived just by answering that one question. And that's the role that, Rasul was talking about, was being there for the client and then answering those questions, giving them a question to think deeper, because that can really change the trajectory of your business.
Yeah, and I can imagine in Javon's case that especially with the pivot to doing the online stuff, is that
Yep.
part of what she's selling also is a feeling, right? Like you're selling an experience that your customer has,
Yep.
and the product may be part of that delivery system, but in many ways it's about what is the feeling they get about interacting with you,
Yep.
right? So which is an incredibly powerful thing.
Mhm.
Yeah, as we wrap up here, I would love to know, is there anything else you could tell us, Rasul, about the Ascend program, or any other programs that our folks could either get involved with or learn more about?
Yeah, sure. I mean, once again, everything that's wonderful and hopefully fantastic about WakeIF can be found at wakeif.org, WACIF.org. And there you can sort of do all the research in terms of all of our financing products and all the advisory services and the workshops and things that we're doing. With respect to the Ascend program, we're actually launching the second post sort of pandemic with our Ascend Thrive edition. That's going to be launching on the 23rd of this upcoming week. Today is the 21st. So yeah, I think on Wednesday or Thursday, we'll be launching the applications for that. And then once again, once they launch, go to our website, you'll be able to find all the information around that. But in closing, like I said, I think really with the whole idea of this platform tonight of storytelling, we're really just here on how do we figure out where in the story, as William said it, and I really love the way he said that, like what's the story that you're trying to work towards? Like you kind of started your story to a degree, you're in the midst of it, but how is that story changing from those X amount of days or weeks or months or years ago to where you're trying to go into the future? And so how do we fit into that picture and co-create this new story that's evolving for you as we sort of venture into this new kind of evolving, changing sort of post-pandemic sort of landscape? So what does that look like? So WakeIF has really been in a position, we've actually grown tremendously since the pandemic. I think we've almost doubled in numbers. Brought on a number of different programs. We actually just recently purchased the Anacostia Arts Center as a part of our own strategic growth. So just a lot of exciting things are happening. But yeah, that's what we're here for. Like, what does this story look as we continue into this post-pandemic world, and how can WakeIF continue to be a partner, a supporter, a counselor, and just all things resource in terms of business owners trying to move forward and trying to really help them get to the next level.
That's fantastic. Is the Ascend program virtual?
In theory, or at the moment it is our first one. So it's like, yeah, it's like, it kind of is. And so when we launched with the first, during the post-pandemic with our Enterprise Women of Color Center, part of what we did, once again, is kind of this idea of pivoting, being agile in real time. We kind of planned for both, but we kind of ran a survey to see what folks were comfortable with. We didn't want to come and say it's going to be virtual, and then we have 100% of the participants saying we could totally do stuff in person. So we kind of had a hybrid model. So some of the like social events we did in person for those who are comfortable. A lot of classes were online. So as of right now, we're planning for virtual, but we're positioned to sort of, pivot sort of, to, as William just mentioned, we've been overusing that, but sort of recalibrate and change the direction if it needs be. But as of right now, we're operating online, but at any time is sort of, just, I think it's yesterday or this past over weekend, the mayor once again sort of lifted the ban on masks. So we're constantly changing environment. So we're kind of playing it by ear and kind of, in this hybrid way and kind of see what makes sense for us going forward.
That sounds great. William, can you talk a little bit about, you have an event coming up, don't you?
Yes, we have a number of events coming up. Officially, it's March 16th, the SBDC Day, Small Business Day for SBDCs. That's celebrated nationwide. If you go, I know we have a few minutes, I'm gonna talk as fast as I can to squeeze it in. If you go to dcsbdc.org, you'll see a lot of our upcoming workshops, upcoming seminars and workshops throughout this quarter, and I think the second quarter of the year. Another partnership that we have that is with Google. So we do a lot of Google workshops along with a lot of other organizations. For example, a lot of workshops on taxes, a lot of workshops on law, business law, a lot of workshops on a variety of business planning workshops. For example, we have 3 different modules that we're working on. And we also, Mr. Carl Brown, the director of the SBDC, he also has a radio show or a podcast show. And every week it's a small business radio talk show. And he has some exciting guests from across the country and a lot of people who are in the SBDC system. He interviews them and talk about their experience as well. So that's another opportunity that we have on a weekly basis with the director of the SBDC, Mr. Carl Brown, that does that. So those are many different things that are coming up in a 30-second window, but visit our website and also to sign up for DC SBDC services to get business advisory services to anyone looking for those services.
Okay, well, thank you both so much for your time and your insights. I know we're going to have a little bit of a Q&A, and if you can take a second to re-put your websites or the best way to reach out and contact in the chat, that would be awesome, just for the folks who came in a little later. We'd be so thrilled. So Benga, I'll toss it back to you to work on this Q&A.
Okay, absolutely. You know, I was taking some notes, and at some point I just got drowned in the internet.
Oh my God, you and me both, Benga. I was sitting here trying to watch and listen and write.
Nuggets, and I was like, where do I even? I was taking all these notes, but just a few of them I want to highlight is when you tell your story, also give space for story listening. Know that there are tons of resources in the district waiting to serve you to make your story even more powerful. Don't just be married to the first chapter of your story. Gain clarity to what that final chapter is going to look like. If you don't even know where the first chapter or the last chapter looks like, reach out. There are resources willing to help. When it comes to that last chapter, though, it's often a collaborative process. And Russell said, there's always help to help you co-create a new story. So I did a few, hey, how can I ever forget what exactly you said? And that right there was what's amazing. My first question, or the only question is to you, Marianne. I know you recently created this resource. Can you talk about the role of not so much of the business plan, storytelling, but just your personal identity, narrative story, any tools of folks who are saying, I have a ton of stories. I don't know what story to tell. I don't see value in my story. Any thoughts on how they can get started and how can that even help their business?
Yeah, so I think that, first of all of our stories matter, right? Not because they can do anything for us, but just because they are a representation of who we are, right? Like, we are all worthy. All of our stories matter just because we exist and we are here. And so I think that no matter what your story is, your background, the things that you love, the people you engage with, all of that is valuable and important because it just is, because you just are. I think that separate from that, the idea of how our stories can be used as communication tools, as leverage, as powerful entities for our business growth, I think is a separate piece to that, right? It's integral, but it's also separate from that. Personally, I think that what matters is really what we want, right? And we can figure out what we want and who we are by the stories that we tell, right? So I think often when people are having a hard time figuring out, well, what should I sell, or what should I do, or what should I, often if we bring it back to who are you, right? Like where did you come from? What is your day-to-day like? How are you existing in the world? What are the challenges that come up for you? You know, when we start unpacking our existence and unpacking, you know, the way we move through the world, often we start to discover challenges, or we discover little bumps in those roadblocks and those, you know, potholes, right? And out of that can come some really interesting ideas about how to solve the things that are challenges for you, that may then be challenges for other people who are a part of your community, a part of the groups and the identities that you are really well connected to. So I think often investigating ourselves can help us figure out how we can serve in a business in many ways. So yeah, that's what I would advise people do, especially if they're trying to figure out how does their story intersect with some business ideas.
I would further advise that they check out this new brand new book, With Your Story to Tell. It's Marianne's breakout book. It's in all bookstores nationwide, and every other platform you get your books, go get it. As a manual to tell your story.
And if anybody wants to hire Benga to help promote their programs and their books, he is available for anybody who would like to.
Okay. So we still have a question from Dodu. Please forgive me. You can unmute yourself and ask the question, Dodu.
Yeah, Mr. Benga. Hi.
We can
Could you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. What's the question?
Yeah, I just want to get the right name of the center. They say Anacostia Center. I miss some word there.
Okay.
One of the panel persons say something about the Anacostia Center, but I missed something in the middle.
Yes, it's the AEDC. It's the Anacostia Economic Development Center.
Okay, Anacostia Economic Development Center. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
And also, there is another center that was mentioned, which is the Anacostia Arts Center, that is now under the management or ownership of WCAF.
Anacostia what?
The Anacostia Art Center.
Art Center. Okay, that's the one I was looking for. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Excellent. Do we have any other questions before we move on? Do we have any hands up? Please, if you have a question, please unmute yourself, or you can chat your question. And at this point, you can ask the question to the panelists at both panels, both the one current and the one the previous one. Do we have any questions? Okay, so we have the contact information of all the speakers in the chat box. We are also going to try to follow up by email. So what I want to do at this point is to share a little bit of a closing remarks. And I just want to use this as an appreciation for every organization that collaboratively make this story co-creation process possible today, from the mayor's office to DSLBDC, to WCAF, to the Latino Economic Development Corporation, to DCSBDC, our wonderful moderator, Marianne, our panel of entrepreneurs and organizations. We want to thank you very much for making today's possible. And I also want to leave you all with some tools and resources to continue to tell your story. Go Global is currently on a workshop series in collaboration with the Office of Latino Affairs and Latino Economic Development Corporation. It's called Your Money Story. It's a financial storytelling masterclass. It's every Tuesday. Our next class happens tomorrow. You definitely want to go to the website goglobalstory.com/events. This program is already funded, so it's available to you for free. And with the resources that are going to be shared in parallel, last week we had the financial Your Money Story. The program is also opening up opportunities for access to capital, zero interest to single-digit interest rate, resources on ownership, access to funding opportunities and business capital. So the next class again is tomorrow. Please sign up for that class. Go Global, we're launching a new campaign communication series called Share Your Stories. We want to continue the Business Story Day virtually and through our communication channels. As you know, we're in the business of digital story production. We produce documentaries, we have a podcast. So if you want to share your story as an entrepreneur, and if you also are in that trajectory of the first chapter or the last chapter, or even find the, even how to establish the table of content, for lack of a better words, of the story and the chapters to concentrate, please go to goglobalstory.com/share your story. Complete a very short form. We are going to follow up with you. If you already have your story, we can consider to feature you as we highlight entrepreneurs whose stories are worth telling. Lastly, we want to talk about our own intensive program called Corporation U. Corporation U, it's an advanced coaching for entrepreneurs who want to monetize and distribute their stories, and entrepreneurs at every level, whether they are pivoting that story, there could also be professionals transitioning into a personal brand as a thought leader. There might even be people running for political or community impact using your story, or even an author, speaker, coach. How do you monetize your brand story and activate multiple streams of income? It's called Corporation U. The website is also on our website, which is Go Global Story /events. And lastly, once again, thank you, everyone. We hope that your story continues to open unprecedented doors, whether it is the first chapter or the next chapter. Know that the DC or the district offers unlimited resources and partners that are ready and willing to co-create your new chapter of your story with you. Thank you, everyone, once again for making the Business Story Day a success, and we look forward to staying in touch. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night. Everyone stay safe. Enjoy. Thanks, Abanga. This
night.
is awesome.
All right.
Talk
Thanks,
to you
guys.
soon,
This
my
was
friend.
great. Take care.
Thanks so much, Benga.
Oh, thank you.
Bye.